Hello and welcome everyone to the Ocean Steward Spotlight, a series that Oceana's field team has created to highlight diverse voices that we work with in the field. My name is Samantha Siegel. I am the Senior Southeast Organizer for Oceana, based here in Charleston, South Carolina. And today I'm joining you from Cusco Ancestral Lands, and I would like to take a moment at the start here to acknowledge the past and present stewardship of the Cusco peoples in the place that I am fortunate enough to call home. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest today, Marilyn Hemmingway. Marilyn is a native of Georgetown, South Carolina, and her ancestral roots extend from Horry to Beaufort counties and include a long line of civic, business, educational, and political family achievement embedded in the traditions of the Galagici community. Ms. Hemmingway earned her Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the University of South Carolina and is a certified impact economics consultant, a registered fundraiser with the state of South Carolina, and in 2020 completed sea level rising and energy certifications through the national NAACP. In 2018, Ms. Hemmingway founded the Galagici Chamber of Commerce, a business membership organization whose mission is to raise global awareness, profitability, and sustainability of African-American businesses in the Galagici community, and currently serves as the CEO. In this role, she is a passionate advocate for clean, affordable energy and for all, and a force in the fight against offshore drilling, testifying in front of the South Carolina legislature and local government bodies on these and other environmental issues impacting the Galagici community. So thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to answering questions and just having a conversation this afternoon.
Great. So we want to dive right into getting to know you. Can you tell us a little bit about your defining moment, if you had a defining moment where you fell in love with the ocean, the coastal environment of South Carolina that we both love so much?
I can say that I don't think there was necessarily a defining moment, but just a gradual love that developed for the water, for the oceans, because of my cultural history, my community, but also because of my travels. I'm an Air Force brat. My dad was in the Air Force for 28 years, and we had the chance to go live on Guam, and he lived many places, but my first real memory of the ocean actually was not the Atlantic Ocean where my culture is found, but the Pacific Ocean because of the island of Guam, where it's an island. It's like 3 miles long. No, 3 miles wide, 18 miles long. That's what it is. And you have to know the ocean because you're right there. And then once we came home, every Saturday, one of my fondest memories, most Saturdays, my mother would gather us up. It's me and 3 older brothers on a Saturday, and we would go to McKenzie Beach, an historic Black beach in Georgetown County. And we would go there and we would go crabbing and fishing, and my brother would toss the shrimp net and try to catch the shrimp so he could use it as bait, etc. And those were some of my fondest memories, not only because it was family time, but that's where I started to learn to become a caretaker of the water and the land, because we were taught what gives us sustenance, we must be a nurturer of, we must take care of, simply because it takes care of us. So I wouldn't say there was a defining moment, but just something that water has always been a part of my life, access to it. I can walk to Winyah Bay from where I live and to Sanford River. We're actually in the crook of those 2 bodies of water. And where I'm from, Georgetown, we have 7 rivers and coming through this county flowing into the Atlantic Ocean. So water has always been just a part of my life.
I can definitely relate. I don't know if I have ever told you about this, but I grew up on a 3-mile island myself, except it was small. It was three miles long and 1 mile across, in the Bahamas. I know, rough life. It was just the most magical place, and everybody knew that the ocean was what sustained them. So it's a very deep cultural appreciation for the water.
That is true, to the water. And for historical reasons, the Galagici, my community culture, we have deeply embedded connection to the land and the water. It's actually why our ancestors were brought from West Africa mostly to this area, because of our understanding of how to manage the water and control the water and manage the land to grow sugar, rice, and indigo. So that's just deeply embedded in who we are.
Yep. Now you touched a little bit on it, but for folks that are in other parts of the country, which some of our audience is, can you tell us a little bit about the Galagici Nation and culture? People are always so interested when I tell them I'm from coastal South Carolina. So
I think our profile is rising, and an appreciation of the culture is rising internally and externally. But thank you, Samantha, for that question. A very good question. The Galagici, we are descendants of enslaved Africans, in particular the countries of West Africa, who were brought to first the islands, Barbados, Bermuda, the Caribbean islands, and also more were taken to South America. And then eventually they jumped the water and came to North America. The federal designation, and I'm very careful in telling people this, the federal designation is the Galagici Cultural Heritage Corridor, which is North Carolina, from Wilmington, North Carolina, all of the South Carolina coastal counties and 60 miles inland, all of the Georgia coastal counties and 60 miles inland from the water coastline, and then all the way down to St. Augustine, Florida. We have a rich history, a rich culture, because how did it come about, Galagici? When the enslaved Africans were brought over, they were from different tribes. So they spoke different tribal languages. So while they were in the bottom of those ships, of the enslavers, owned by the enslavers, they had to communicate with each other. And then they were also taking the language of the enslavers, English and Spanish, and these African tribal languages, and they created a whole new language, Gullah, Galagici. Also, they brought with them the food traditions, also foods, actual food. Yam is from West Africa. Watermelon, rice is grown in West Africa. That's why they knew how to control the water and manage the land. Okra is from West Africa. So they brought these foods with them. They knew how to cook them. So now you have the food traditions, and then you have the spiritual traditions. If you go to an African-American church, when you see the hand clapping, the rhythmic hand clapping, the stomping, the shouting on walking the bench or shouting in circles, that is West African traditions. So they took what they knew and they evolved into a whole new culture, the Galagici culture. And about 12 years ago, the federal government were petitioned, and they determined, led by Representative Jim Clyburn, to establish the Galagici Cultural Heritage Corridor, the 4 states I mentioned, but we also are actually found all over the United States, because if you take into consideration the Great Migration, those in South Carolina, North Carolina went towards New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, and then others from Alabama, Louisiana, that's another Creole language was created. They went to Chicago, Minneapolis, and you can see the great migration patterns. And I have family in Detroit. I have family in California. And if you go to any African American church, and if you see that hand clapping, you see that foot stomping, that's embedded in that Galagici culture, which is eventually embedded in the West African cultures that were brought to us. So we've managed to maintain a lot of those cultural traditions and evolve them into a new culture, if you will. And that's who we are. We are here in South Carolina. Georgetown, where I am from, is considered the epicenter of the rice culture. A good friend of mine, I love to quote her. She said, they made the money in Georgetown on the plantations, but they spent it in Charleston. Georgetown alone had over 300 plantations. And
Wow.
up and down the coast, there were multiple plantations, and that's where our ancestors, that's why I'm here.
That's so interesting.
I'm a product of not only the enslaved, I am a product of the enslavers also. But,
yeah, and it's amazing that we were able to retain that culture into the present day. It's just it's
exactly.
a really
And water has something to do with that. Water, because you find they call the Galagici on the sea islands that were separated by the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, from the mainland. And it's not until the 1930s with the New Deal, because of depression, they built bridges connecting the islands to the mainland. So before that, they call it before the bridges, they were very insulated, isolated communities. So they retained a lot of African traditions. And you see it on the inland side also, but they tended to be a little gentrified a little faster. But yeah, we were able to retain a lot of those traditions. And one of the most obvious is sweetgrass baskets. If you see a sweetgrass basket in the Charleston area, you can go to Africa, you will see those same type of baskets, the same manner of making those baskets. So there's very obvious connections.
That is just so cool. So on that note, what inspired you to found the Galagici Chamber of Commerce? Where did that come out of?
Because our labor has never been fully compensated. We were first brought here enslaved. Our ancestors, they were not paid. So from that, we've always been behind economically. And then after the Civil War, we were still not compensated. You sharecropping. But the interesting thing is there were areas that did prosper because imagine this, plantations were cities in and of themselves. You just couldn't go around the corner to the convenience store. Everything was done on the plantation. So it's not just the enslaved were in the fields, they were in the house, they were the carriage makers, the leather good makers, the butcher, the blacksmith. They built the houses, these buildings that you see in Charleston, Georgetown, all up and down the coast. They were the builders, the engineers, if you will. So they had the skills because you had to have the skills, and they brought these skills from Africa. So at the end of the Civil War, many of them left the plantations and came into small towns like a Georgetown or a Charleston or Wilmington, North Carolina, and they built shops and stuff, etc., commerce. What ended up happening is the end of Reconstruction. You lost a lot of your businesses, you lost your farms, there were lynchings. Wilmington in 1896 was literally, they don't know how many, they estimate 300 to over 2,000 African Americans were killed because of their prosperity. It was literally an insurrection that destroyed a democratically elected government. It was majority Black. So we had to deal with violence, racial violence, lynchings, and lack of access to economic empowerment. And a lot of us left, a lot of our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, they left, and that actually took the bottom out of the agriculture economy. And that's a whole nother visit. But from there, we've never really caught up economically. We've never really been compensated. First, not paid at all. Then second, when we were paid, it was barely living wages.
Right.
And that was by design. So I decided, and that we feel those repercussions to this day. And I wanted to be part of the solution to that. I've always been an entrepreneur, but I've made money for other folks, corporations that I've worked in other healthcare centers, nonprofits, etc. And I decided I was going to do something for my community and for myself, take care of my retirement, but help my community. And I took a course at the College of Charleston, In-Place Impact. I went in with one idea and I fine-tuned it, and it became the Galagici Chamber of Commerce. So in 2018, I left my job and stepped out. Some would say faith and a little crazy. It takes a little crazy to step away from a well-paying job, retirement and everything. And I've never looked back. And I did this because I wanted to make an economic difference in my community, to help create economic uplift and empowerment. And if you will, environmental justice and economic justice. And the environmental justice piece comes from our history, that we knew how to control that water and manage the land, that created wealth for other people. But the economic justice to create generational wealth. And they work hand in hand together because we are inherently tied to the land and the water. And has, once again, my friend Zenobia Harper said, when we walk out our doors, our abundance is right in front of us. And so we're focused on handcrafted, authentic, natural creations, just people making stuff. We're bigger than that, we're more than that, but we have particular focus on that because it's really inherently embedded in our culture and who we are.
Wow. I'm so grateful that we have you to take this on. And I mean, still a much needed, chamber for South Carolina. It's just so great. And I got to meet you early on when you came and started fighting offshore drilling right out of the gate, I guess.
Yeah, that's a story in and of itself. The environmental part is going back to sustenance. We cannot prosper if the Galagici cannot prosper, if the indigenous people cannot prosper, because we're not taking care of the land and the water. No one can prosper. No one can survive and thrive. So we have to regroup and get back in touch with our roots. But also it brings along everyone else. And that includes the fight against offshore drilling. Mm-hmm. We cannot have this poisoning our waters. And back in 2015, I was invited to a meeting, and they didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who they was, because it was a friend who said, Marilyn, I was invited to this. I can't go, but I know you're interested in the environment, so you go. And I said, okay, and come back and tell me what happened. And I said, okay, I'll go. So I went, and this meeting ended up being an educational session hosted by the oil and gas industry.
Oh my gosh.
And it was held in Charleston, South Carolina in June 2015.
I was there.
You were there?
I was holding signs outside, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I was inside. And it was in Charleston, the Embassy Suite, so you know. But the whole session was about Georgetown.
Yep, that's where they wanted to put all the
infrastructure. They wanted to put all the refineries, and they were talking about how the airport, the county airport, which it literally is like maybe 2 miles from my house, and it's an old U.S. naval weapons station, weapons air, from World War II. Mm-hmm. So it's perfect for private planes, and it's perfect for the planes they would need for the oil and gas industry.
Right.
Sanford River, they were talking about putting barges on it. Where they wanted to put the refinery is a Black community, a Gullah community. Now, mind you, There were two Black people, no, three Black people
Wow.
in this entire session. Me,
Wow.
a Black gentleman who owned a trucking company in Charleston, and a Black woman who was the communications person for the oil and gas industry, for the association.
Wow.
And then one other person, the economic development director for Georgetown County, was there, but he was also there to listen also. This was literally an education session, and they had invited certain people. And they literally were pointing, oh, we're going to build the refineries here. And it was a Black community. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I didn't even live in that community. I live across the river from that community, but you know, it's a small town, so you know everybody.
Right.
And I'm sitting here watching him explain what they were going to do to our town. And no one in the town knows but me. and the county economic development director. And I'm sitting here, I had a tablet at the time. I took it up and started taking pictures of the presentation.
That's so great.
Yeah, then I got on the phone when I left. I was almost in tears because I knew the impact. And my oldest brother is a civil engineer, and his first job out of college was with Texaco in Beaumont, Texas.
Wow.
And he soon left there, but through him, I learned about the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
And Beaumont, Texas, and I'm sure your audience knows, it's known as Cancer Alley. Yep. For a reason. All the refineries are there. And I'm sitting here going, they're literally talking about putting refineries where a Black community is located and poisoning the waters and creating a cancer alley. And I got on the phone when I left and called the Coastal Conservation League and other environmental groups and told them what was going on, called a city council member. But I would say in about 6 months after that, that's when the Obama administration decided that they were not going to allow them to pursue that, you know, the oil and gas. But yeah, I had been involved before that, but you're talking about a defining moment now. That was a defining moment. Yeah, I'm like, this is going to change our community forever. And that's when I really got into the fight against offshore drilling and stop offshore drilling in the Atlantic. SODA, they've been great friends of the Galagici Chamber. And that's another reason why environmental justice is a huge part of our advocacy of the chamber, because I knew that there are forces outside of the community that impact this community, and we needed to get educated about that. So when I started the chamber, my advocacy from day one has been environmental justice, addressing climate change, and education about career and business opportunities in green renewable energy. Because it's not just enough for our community to say we're against offshore drilling, we're against climate change. We have to figure out ways how we can make a living from healthier industries. We have to, you know, you do that's you have to do. You can't leave us out of the economic portion of it, because that's part of the problem. Because what was the oil and gas industry saying? This is going to create jobs, jobs, jobs. And when you are part of a population that historically has never been paid, or has been paid barely living wages or minimum wage, you're going to look at jobs, jobs, jobs and say, hey, that's $3 more an hour than I was making before. That's what you're going to focus on. And these extractive industries know this. Yeah, that's why they always lead with jobs, jobs, jobs. They never tell you the truth about the environmental impact. Wow.
I'm so grateful that you were there and you were able to see through that.
It's wonderful what some knowledge can do. Exactly. And by that time, I had enough knowledge to know this is bull. I don't know if I can say that. This is BS.
You're fine. Yeah, wow. So I would love to ask a question for our viewers who want to take action and love their coastal communities and their oceans, but don't really know what steps they can take to protect it. And you just sort of outlined that when you said, I called the Coastal Conservation League. I called my city council member. But what else do what other advice would you give to aspiring advocates?
As the quote that I used earlier, our abundance, when we walk out our doors, our abundance is right in front of us. Well, not only does that mean that we could take that abundance and thrive with it, but it also means we have to take care of it. So one of the first things that people can do is walk out your door and pick up trash.
Yes, yes.
The easiest thing is keep your neighborhoods clean. Just walk out your door and start picking up trash. That's one of the first easy steps anyone can do. Grow your own food. Get knowledge. There's so much resources out here now. Even through the Galagici Chamber of Commerce, we focus on African American businesses because that's who we are. But we don't exclude anyone. I have businesses that are white owned. Other minorities come in to here also because we are all in this together. So with that being said, in October, we're going to have the Galagici Environmental and Energy Conference. We need volunteers.
Nice.
In Charleston. Yeah.
You've got one right here.
Yeah. I received a grant from the Climate Reality Project, Al Gore's organization.
Wow.
One out of 10 in the country and the only one in South Carolina.
Wow.
So we're going to do the Galagici Environmental Energy Conference in October. We need volunteers. You just contact us. Feel free to share my information, Samantha.
I will. Yes. I'm going to put it up on the screen in a minute.
We also do conversations. We're going to restart those every second Monday. I'm going to restart it in August. Every second Monday at 6:00, and we're going to do virtual. We invite environmental organizations to come in, talk about their mission, their advocacy work to our community, take questions and answers. It's like you're doing today. It's to educate our community. Yeah, and it's going to be on our Facebook page, YouTube channel stuff, so that you can learn from there. But I tell people start at home. And I learned that because even for personal reasons, there is so much brokenness in our world right now, especially because of the pandemic. But even prior to that, we have these mass shootings, climate change. That is a man-made thing, what we're facing now. But to make that change, it has to start with self. It has to start internally. And we have a lot of brokenness in this world. And until we start getting healthy internally, we cannot have healthy homes. We cannot have healthy neighborhoods, cities, communities, states, or nation. It starts within here. And I say this from my own personal journey, because not only did I learn more with environmental and get in new green renewable energy and my business, but I also went and have mental health treatments because I suffer from depression, and I knew I had to get on a healthier journey.
Wow.
So I could deal with the bigger issues. And I'm not perfect. We all deal with brokenness, but I know that I am on a healthier journey so that when I walk out my door every day, that I have to play a small part just in doing, when I go on walks, picking up trash, around my neighborhood. That's where you start. Knowing my neighbors and what their issues are. I have a garden. I've been doing gardens about 12 years now. My own personal veggie garden in the backyard. That makes a difference. And it's health. It gets me outdoors more consistently. So mentally, physically, it's a healthier journey. So you want to be an environmentalist. The first environment you need to take care of is yourself.
Yes.
And once you get on that healthier journey, it is so much easier to see the opportunities beyond your door. And started with your neighborhood. We had a community garden in the neighborhood that we had to take that down, but me and my neighbor did it. So instead of having it in the neighborhood, we did it in our yards. Still available to our neighbors, but it was easier to do it in our yards. Just get involved. There's so many organizations out here that need volunteers, and I've bumped heads with some environmental groups also, because I've also told them, you like to hold hands across the sand to save the turtles. You need to hold hands across the West End to save the people, and that's in Georgia. The West End, that's the low income area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is just right in front of us, but we don't see it. And you got to start someplace. And start with self, and you will see the other opportunities. Go to your local library. There's always something at your local library. And, just do it. I don't want to sound like a Nike commercial, but sometimes it is.
That's really good advice.
Take it, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
I could talk to you all afternoon, but our time is coming to an end. I'm going to share your info on the screen here for folks to reach out and to your website, gulagicichamber.org. Do you have any parting words for everyone that you'd like to share?
That sometimes you're going to get tired. You are. I get tired. Samantha, I'm sure you get tired. Mm-hmm. Self-care is so important. It's good. You have permission. Give yourself permission in this ongoing work. And it is ongoing work to sometimes take a step back and do self-care. And it's something that I have to remind myself I too neglect, but it's something, it takes practice, so that when you are in a better physical place and mental place, you can come back to the ongoing work and keep going. There are enough of us out here that we can take breaks every once in a while to keep going. And in doing that, you will attract more people. Because let me tell you, you can't attract people when you're looking tired and haggard.
That's true. That is so true. And I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was in my 20s, I could just go all day, and all of a sudden I hit 30 and I was like, oh, I need to slow down. I'm not good to anyone unless
you learn to pace yourself. People ask me, Marilyn, where do you get this energy from? They don't know. When I come in my home and I shut the door, I like being by myself. This re-energizes me so I can keep going. You learn to pace yourself. We are not going to win this battle overnight.
You're exactly right.
It's a long-term thing, because we have to first change our personal behaviors and then share enough knowledge that the light bulb will go off with more people, and more people will get involved, and they will continue the work. So one of the things I want to share with everyone, pace yourself, love yourself, take care of yourself, because we need you in this battle. We need you to come back to it, and don't get frustrated, because we're here waiting on you to come back so we can keep the battle going. And that's what I would like to share with folks. And y'all reach out to me anytime.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. It's been so great talking to you. I just want to promo our next Ocean Steward Spotlight will be on July 22nd, and we'll have Makeda Akola joining us. So please come tune in and join us. And thank you again so much, Marilyn. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Anytime, and anybody else wants to invite me to speak, I'm happy to come speak too. Thank you, Samantha.
We'll pick you up on that. We will.
Very good. Y'all have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.